Hello, and you're very welcome along to another edition of the JMac podcast. I'm John McMahon. Of course, the podcast is kindly brought to you by yourgarage.com. Use my promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on the website. And tonight, I'm joined by former Derry All-Star Paddy Bradley to run the rule all of the Alliance National Football League action. And of course, this weekend's Alliance National Football League action. Paddy, how are you?
Yeah, good, John. I suppose great weekend sport. Not just the GA, obviously the rugby and the drama and all that it brought. So great weekend's football and another good weekend's football to come. There's still lots to play for, and a lot of the divisions. Obviously, you've got Monaghan and Offaly. We know are already relegated, but there's still plenty of teams in the hunt in every division for these league finals. So it's going down to the wire.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of teams, fate already sealed, unfortunately, maybe sealed a couple of weeks ago, but officially sealed yesterday with Monaghan going down from Division 1, Offaly going down from Division 2. So obviously this weekend we'll have the proper lay of the land, but obviously tough on the likes of Monaghan going down to Division 2 again, Paddy. And of course, it was a very difficult league for them with lots of men missing, a couple of retirements, a couple of injuries, and then obviously Offaly going down yesterday to Division 3. So it is tough on them counties, Paddy.
Aye, especially knowing your fate with a week still to play. You wonder then. Obviously, championships approaching, obviously, and the focus is going to be on that. But really disappointing that they don't even take it to the last round of fixtures. But look, John, both them counties have been badly hampered with injuries. Monaghan, like we're used to Monaghan battling against the odds, like for the last 10, 12, whatever amount of years. You're saying Monaghan's going to be relegated, they're going to be relegated, but they keep on producing big performances and big results. Clonus was always a bit of a fortress for them. But look, with the injuries, the Scottstown men missing, the retirement of Conor McManus, etc., they just found Division 1 a bit of a stretch this year. And look, they'll be really reliant on getting men back ahead of the championship. How close men are to coming back, I don't know. But you feel that their season could implode unless they do get bodies back on the pitch. Offaly, it was always going to be a stretch up in Division 2. To me, Offaly, whilst they're doing plenty of good work at underage, they don't have this panel depth to compete with the better sides in Division 2. They obviously had a number of injuries, and that didn't help the cause either. So, look, it's very hard to turn the corner whenever you get a run of poor results against you. Momentum's went against both them sides, injuries went against both them sides. So, they find themselves relegated, and it's disappointing, but I'm sure they'll be back both counties.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope springs eternal, Paddy, without a shadow of a doubt. And I suppose we'll crack straight into the action that took place over the weekend. On Saturday, the 14th of March in Division 4, you had Carlow against London. It was Carlow 18 points, London 120 in net, which Cullen Park, a very good win for London here, Paddy, has to be said. I think we were all tipping Carlow in this particular game. And that's a great win for Michael Maher in London.
Aye, look, Carlow sort of shot themselves in the foot a wee bit the last couple of weeks. So they're sitting obviously still top of the table on 8 points, but they do need a victory in their last game. I fully expect them to win that game at home to Leitrim, but they've been disappointed that it's came to the last game. Two losses in a row. Like not many people would give London a chance. As you well know, with that wee tipping sort of competition that we have, and not one person. One
Paddy,
person
I thought I was going to be gone after this weekend. Very Sligo was looking good against Down for the first half, and then it went the pot fairly quickly.
they didn't compete well for long periods. But, hey, the feature of the weekend was probably the weather and the swing
Oh,
and all the games, and a team's ability to utilise the 2 pointers and utilise the one when they had it. But like Carlow at home to London, like you're thinking it's a banker. It's a really, really disappointing result. Now, thankfully for them, they still have an opportunity to redeem themselves and get promotion next week. They have another home game, as I say, against Leitrim that you'd expect them to win. But given the poor result of the weekend, you just don't know. Division 4 has been nuts, let's be honest. I think 7 out of the 8 teams, I'm right, have still a chance of promotion, depending on how results go. So the very fact that it's gone down to the last day, and 7 out of them 8 teams have a chance, it's unbelievable. I don't think that's ever happened before. So
mhm.
brilliant stuff altogether. Like, and fair play to London for coming across and getting that one. I think they have 7 points, and that's the most ever points they have amassed. And
Mhm.
a National League campaign. So fair play to them. They're obviously doing plenty of good work. And look, they have an outside chance of promotion themselves, albeit they have a difficult game going up to Antrim this week.
Mm, mm. Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll all need the split screens this weekend now for all for all these games. Where
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
it's going to be a really good weekend. I think the last day of the Alliance National Football League, Paddy. I think think we should all just be set aside the whole day and just let us leave us in peace and don't annoy us. I think it's just because it's always an enthralling day without a shadow of doubt. And then Sunday's action, Paddy, in Division 4, you had Waterford against Antrim. It was Waterford 11 points, Antrim 4-18 in Cappoquin at just 6 for her field. Paddy, that is just what the doctor ordered for Mark Doran. High scoring, another 2 points. Okay, they're not going to get promotion. Then that's probably it's obviously it's too little, too late. But they've stretched the legs, they've piled on the goals, and Waterford were at the end of it.
Well, we talked about this last week, the momentum that they're building ahead of the championship. We know with the Derry coming down the track, and that's a whole different proposition. But look, after 3 losses in a row at the start of the league campaign, there's plenty of people scratching their heads about Antrim football, about Mark Doran's appointment, about how poorly they were playing. But they've definitely turned the corner. 4 different goal scorers at the weekend. Dominic Hill kicks 8 points. They've a rich vein of form. They've got a bit of momentum, and that's 3 good ones in the bounce. So, yeah, fair play to them for turning their season around. And it'll be interesting to see just how they do against Derry in the championship. They obviously ran Armagh, give them a good game up in Corrigan Park last year. But to say Derry, obviously a different proposition, but fair play to them to say for turning things around, because after 3 games, as I say, there was plenty of people wondering about the appointment of Mark Doran and where the season was going, but they definitely have turned the corner, so fair play to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Great result yesterday. And Mark sent me on a pint of Guinness on Snapchat last night, so I hope he, I hope he had a few celebrated drinks and let the hair down, because by God he deserves it. And then you had Leitrim against Longford. It was Leitrim 3-19, Longford 1-15 in Heartland Credit Union Park. Sean McDermott, a great win for Stevie Poacher there against Stevie Poacher's Leitrim against Longford there. Longford will obviously be very disappointed, but just what the doctor ordered for Leitrim.
Good one. But again, like most of the other teams in this division, the problem that's hindered Leitrim at the minute is that consistency. It seems to be one really, really good performance like yesterday, but then it's usually followed up by a really poor or unconventional performance. So Leitrim have had a couple of, 3 of the ones they've had now in the league and 3 losses, but they're searching for that consistency. We know how difficult a team they can be to play against. They have a big game. I suppose they still have an outside chance of promotion, albeit they would need a lot to go their way. But they're going to Carlow this weekend, and obviously Carlow need to win that. So that'll be an interesting game to finish off. And again, that should set them up nicely ahead of the championship. But as I say, inconsistency around Leitrim and how they perform week in, week out seems to be the issue there. But that was definitely a good performance and high scoring at the weekend.
Yeah, and make no doubt about it. And then the last game of Division 4, Paddy, you had Wicklow against Tipperary. It was Wicklow 3-19. Tipperary 13 points in Etchlon Park, Aughrim. It was always going to be a tall order for Tipperary going to Aughrim. I think it's a tall order for any county going to Aughrim. I think it's just a complete fortress, but that was a great win for Oisin McConville and Wicklow. We're not too far from the championship, and Oisin wants a bit of momentum going into it.
Yeah, and again, Wicklow's promotion is in their own hands. Again, they have been really inconsistent. A couple of strange results throughout the course of the league, but then you come at the weekend there and they produced the performance they produced and won that game quite handily. Aughrim, as you say, is a very, very tough place to go and get a result. I remember years ago going down there with Derry a few times and lost in Aughrim. Home advantage usually is a big positive for them. But they have a difficult enough game this weekend away to Longford. It's another tough place to go, but won that there and they've secured the promotion. And they had been one of the teams that you'd have been thinking would have been the hunt for promotion. They'd have been expecting promotion. What Oisin McConville's there now? There's 4 years, is it?
4 years, yeah.
4 years. And so they'd have been looking, to get back up into Division 3. That would have been the main aim at the start of the year. So their fate is in their own hands, but they do have a difficult tie away to Longford in the last game.
In fairness, Paddy, like we obviously we talk so much about these county jobs and taking them on and the time that goes into it. Like, it is a credit to Oisin. Like, it's probably not the most glamorous job. It's not it's probably a bit off the beaten track, so on and so forth. But there's not many. Let's not beat around the bush. There's not many men around, I suppose, the country that would take on the Wicklow job. And it's his 4th year in charge. He is obviously trying to build something with them, and it's a credit to him in a way.
Aye, and look, I suppose you wonder what motivates different managers taking different jobs. Like Wicklow are not going to win the All Ireland, but he obviously sees something in them. As you say, he's been there 4 years. He's trying to build something. He potentially sees maybe a Tilson Cup in that team. They'll obviously want to be playing their trade in a higher division than Division 4. They've experienced Division 3 and he wants to get back up there. But I'd say that's Oisin's motivation is trying to bring Wicklow to the likes of a Tailteann Cup. And they have plenty of good footballers. Kevin Quinn there at the weekend, kicked 1-5. Seems to be a decent enough player. As we said already, Auckland's a really, really difficult place for any team to go and get a result. And fair play to Oisin. He stayed there 4 years. And look, it would be a big boost for them if they can get them back up to Division 3 playing against that better opposition.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Then moving on to Division 3 reaction, Paddy, over the weekend. On Saturday, you had Fermanagh against Laois. It was Fermanagh 2-13, Laois 1-14 in Brewster Park. Well, Fermanagh have finally secured a win in Division 3, Paddy, and it's hard to believe it's up to round 6, but they've got there, Paddy, or sorry, Declan Bonner was absolutely delighted after the game. In fairness, we all did say Laois. Fermanagh had other ideas.
We talked last week with the fact that Laois still had an outside chance for promotion. No, good one for Fermanagh. Look, in Ulster here, we know how difficult a proposition Fermanagh can be in any given day. They've produced some really, really shock results in terms of beating bigger counties over the years in championship and whatnot. For whatever reason, things just the new management team has been slow to get things going, but that's a much needed one ahead of championship. It still looks as if they're going to end up down in Division 4, which is disappointing from their point of view, but they will be buoyed by the fact that they have got 2 points on the board. They have Limerick in the last game. They'll be confident of maybe going down there and getting a result because Limerick aren't the most consistent of sides either. It's all around been a difficult and a disappointing league for Fermanagh thus far, but that was definitely a pleasing performance the weekend. Scored fairly highly, and that'll give them a bit of confidence going to the championship.
Yeah, make no doubt about it. And then let me see the other games in Division 3 on Sunday. Yesterday, Paddy, you had Clare against Wexford. It was Clare 2-17, Wexford 1-23 in Simmer Biomet Park Isogue. That was a very impressive game yesterday.
Big one for Wexford, and it means, I suppose, their fate's in their own hands. They have to travel to Westmeath. It's a winner takes all in the last game to see who gets that second promotion spot. We talked last week about how difficult a place it is to go, Ennis. I was actually driving home from training myself while that game was on, and the commentary was going back and forward to it. It sounded like a real humdinger of a game, and that's a very, very impressive result for Wexford going to Ennis and getting them 2 points. Wexford started the league pretty well and then sort of had a wee bit of a dip in form, but they seem to be coming right again at the right time. And as I say, that's going to be a humdinger of a game then with Westmeath for that second spot for going up.
Absolutely. Wexford really are on the crest of a wave there now, as we said. And then you had Sligo against Down. It was Sligo 21 points, Down to 25. Well, in Markowitz Park, well, that was my shout of the weekend, and it was looking good until half time. But Down had other ideas, stretched the legs, and got out of Markowitz Park with the 2 points.
Aye, when we talked about that last week, we knew Sligo would put it up to them. Again, Markowitz Park, difficult enough place to go. Sligo were usually decent at home. There's always a wind blowing there, and Sligo were ahead at half time. As you say, your predictions coming to fruition, but no, Down have been the standout team in that league. Obviously finished the game really, really strongly, scoring very, very highly. I think the points difference is plus 30 or something. They are the standout team at Division 3. Deserve to play in Division 2 football. We talked last week about how they would try and probably seal promotion this weekend, which they did, which maybe gives them a week off in their last game. So they've released Common, who probably have nothing to play for. Conor Lavery will probably be fit to rest players, give his squad men about a game time ahead of resting up for maybe a league final a week after. So fair play to Down and gaining promotion.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And then the last game in Division 3 over the weekend, Paddy, you had Westmeath against Limerick. It was Westmeath 4-21, Limerick 3-8 in TEG Cusack Park. Mullingar, Mark McHugh will be absolutely delighted with that. He has them Westmeath boys moving very well.
Yeah, a bit like Wexford. Started the league off really, really well. There was a lot of talk about how they were really enjoying the setup under Mark McHugh. Did a couple of bad results in the middle of the league, but they're coming good again. And again, as I said earlier, themselves and Westmeath is going to be a humdinger of a game to see who gets that second promotion spot. That was very, very high scoring at the weekend. Westmeath have plenty of good footballers. Home advantage, you'd expect maybe that to swing it for them. But look, Wexford coming up there with a chance of promotion, that's going to be a class game. Well worth going to, it would be well worth if the television cameras were at that one. I know all the coverage always is around Division 1 and Division 2, but it's like that game there, that showdown to see if he can get back up and from promotion from Division 3, that would be a class game to be at and to watch at the weekend.
Yeah. If only we had a streaming service for all these games, buddy.
That's it. That's it.
If only, if only. Ask look, maybe someday. And then in Division 2, Paddy, on Saturday, the 14th of March, you had Louth against Derry. It was Louth 119, Derry 18 points in the fight, Parkmore in RD. This was always going to be a tricky assignment for Derry. I think we all were tipping our hat towards them. I think when Shane McGuigan missed that penalty, that was probably the, I suppose, big highlight of the game, Paddy. But Louth will be thrilled with that victory. Horse Devlin.
Horses, I'm going well. Look, again, last week we talked about the fact that RD was going to be difficult. But I thought, given Derry's momentum and how they've been playing and how heavily they've been scoring over the last number of weeks, I still thought they've been good enough to get a result. I missed the first 15 or 20 minutes with the under 12 and a half game down at the pitch. I thought at half time, whilst they were, was it 7 or 8 down, I still thought they were, with the wind, that they were well within touching distance. At the start of the second half, they kicked a couple of 2-pointers. They got back within a couple of points. Obviously, the penalty that Shane missed. I think nearly it was as if Derry felt the one was going to win the game for them. I thought in the second half they were very standoffish. I think Louth were very, very tigerish in defence. Sucked Derry in and hit them in the break. And but for maybe butchering a few chances, Louth could have won that. They did a few good breakaways, what they butchered themselves. And I think but for that, they could have won that game more handsomely. I thought Sam Mulroy had a very, very good game. I don't know who was tasked with marking him, or was he given a, was it sort of nearest man to him, picks him up type thing? But I thought he had a big influence in the game. And as I say, I just thought they were very flat. The forwards didn't show up at all. Shane, by his own high standards, obviously missed the penalty, didn't have his best game. Lachlan Murray wasn't brilliant. The one chink of light probably for Derry was Matthew Downey come on and kicked 3 points. He's somebody obviously that's missed the last 2 or 3 years with injuries. He has a wee bit of game time throughout the National League. And
is he ending to Henry, Paddy?
It's Henry Shun, yeah. Henry
Shun.
Sure,
Jesus, okay.
He'd have been the minor All-Ireland one captain. He's had a rough time with injuries the last 2 or 3 years, has played very little football, even club football. But he has got a bit of game time throughout this National League. And the more game time he gets, the better, because we continuously say it. The one thing that Derry lack maybe to compete with the best of the teams is 4 or 5 scoring forwards. They rely very, very heavily on Shane McGuigan all the time. I know Lachlan Murray seems to have had a purple patch in terms of form bar the weekend, so that's a positive moving forward. So the likes of Matthew Downey, if we get him fit and on the field more regularly, that would be positive for Derry coming into the championship.
Absolutely.
It looks now, John, at this point that Derry's chances of promotion are gone, which is disappointing. Again, after the defeat to Meath, people then thought, Derry won't be promoted. But then with the run of results they've had up until now, you're thinking, oh, geez, promotion's firmly in the mix again. But that was disappointing. But look, as I say, RD is a very difficult place to go. And fair play to Louth. Gavin Devlin has them flying. They're going really well. Like they were missing a pile of regulars too. Don't forget. But they were still fit to eke out that result. And brilliant result it was. And look, they're in the hunt for promotion themselves. Fair play to them.
Absolutely, and trip from the Cavan boys now this weekend, Paddy, just to make matters worse for you.
This is it. That doesn't make that an easy proposition either, yeah.
Oh Lord, God help you. No, Paddy, obviously you've experienced this. I probably asked you just before, but with Shane McGuigan coming down the stretch, and we even seen when Rory was over them, Mickey Harts, once and forth, even to a degree, Paddy Tally last year. When it comes to the squeeze, will Derry's downfall be the over-reliance on Shane McGuigan and not having, I suppose you do have Lachlan Murray, but maybe say what you back in the day, you'd yourself, Dietz, Skilligan, you'd Skinner, you'd just more help, I suppose, Paddy?
Aye, look, talked about it, like that has been the big thing for me in terms of this league campaign, was trying to get Lachlan Murray steady football. Getting 5, 6, 7 games under his belt. He's been somebody that has been out injured a lot. He played a game here, played a game there, but wasn't fit to get a consistent run on the team. He has done the last while. Okay, maybe having his best game of the weekend, but to me, he's somebody that if Derry can keep on the pitch and keep match sharp, he'll be a big plus moving forward in terms of taking some of that responsibility off Shane. I talked about Matthew Downey. Again, if we can get a wee bit more game time with him on his legs, that will be a positive moving forward. But I Derry do need to, I suppose, spread the burden out, because Shane does carry a lot of the burden all the time. And then you get an example at the weekend whenever Shane's maybe not on form, maybe hasn't his best game. Derry do struggle for scores. They all, Brenton Rodgers will kick a 2-pointer here or there. Ethan Doherty will kick you a point here or there. But in terms of actually consistent scoring forwards, Derry do need the likes of Lachlan Murray and Matthew Downey and these boys all chipping in with 3, 4, 5 points apiece to take that burden off Shane.
Mm. Yeah. Be interesting now can they get that spread of scores going, because it does feel like when Shane Wigan maybe is not having a great day, it'll be interesting to see can anyone else really kind of carry that.
The other thing is I would say about there is Niall Loughlin has a fairly decent league campaign. So
Yeah.
under Rory Gallagher, I suppose Niall's role was more sort of out the field, working hard, just foraging for ball. It wasn't really as a score getter. I think having actually taught and worked with Niall in school, he's a great player. He's an out and out scoring forward, but as I say, this year he seems to have taken on more responsibility in terms of the scoring stakes. I thought he was the one positive in terms of the forward play at the weekend. I think playing him closer to goal, he has benefited from that, and he is starting to take a wee bit of that burden off Shane McGuigan too. So that's a positive moving forward. So it's not all doom and gloom. As they look, every team's searching for consistency throughout the league. I don't think there's any one side you could say has played, Barn Down has played 6 or 7 really, really top class, put in 6 or 7 top class consistent performances, and they are like most of the teams, they're just searching for that consistency. I say I would put the weekend down to hey, it's just one of them days where nothing went right for them. The wind, the conditions, everything else. But look, Derry will park it. If they don't get promotion, they don't get promotion. Is it really a bad thing? Not really. For that group of players, the fact that we are trying to introduce new faces, Kieran Mean is trying to strengthen his panel. Would another season in Division 2 kill them? No, it probably wouldn't. That's not to say the be all and end all. To me, they're still firmly in the hunt, and one of the top teams in Ulster, and their focus will firmly be on trying to get to an Ulster final now, because they have a decent draw.
Yeah. Yeah, because we will get on to meet now in a second. But just when I have it in my head, with Robbie Brennan even saying after the game the other day, like he was doing his post match interviews, and he was saying like even Reed aren't even to gain promotion, but they are right in line. If teams come down from Division 1, if teams coming up from Division 3. So Division 2, Paddy, realistically is still a very strong division. So albeit if Derry are stuck there next year, it's not the worst.
No, not at all. Say Meath and Cork, Louth, all good sides. All sides capable of winning provincial championships. So no, Division 2 has been a really, really competitive league. Even, Cavan, in fairness to them, who haven't had the best league campaign, like Cavan are still a solid Division 2 side. I think Barron Offaly, who have sort of been the whipping boys of that league. Again, we've talked about that and the injuries they have and the problems they've had. Barring that, you're getting 5 or 6 really, really good competitive games in Division 2. So it's not the be all and end all. And I say, being there for another year wouldn't really, to me, affect or stop Derry's growth or development.
Yeah. No, not at all. I just think it's a very competitive division. Make no doubt about it. And then you had Cork against Kildare. It was Cork 131, Kildare 219 in Super Value Parky Queeve. Well, my God, this was one hell of a game of football. Obviously, with the new rules, make the game so expansive, make it so much more exciting. And Kildare were just so close, but they just couldn't get the job done.
Aye, look, I think Cork did we put in the WhatsApp group 124 or something in the first half? Some shooting like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
exhibition of point scoring and 2-point shooting. Look, Cork, that's Cork for you. Like last week, obviously against Derry, they took a bit of a walloping. Sometimes we criticise them for, again, inconsistencies, not being good travellers. There's a few of us actually tipped Kildare to maybe get down and get a result there, given how important the game was for Kildare in terms of trying to fend off relegation. But Cork absolutely blew them out of the water in the first half, and that was some scoring. But again, Cork are one of them sides that are just searching for consistency. On any given day, Cork can put it up to anybody. They can put it up to Kerry and Munster, no doubt. But on another day, they can be flat like they were last week against Derry. So Cork have put themselves firmly in the mix for promotion again. They've obviously Tyrone and Oma next week. Given Tyrone's form, you would say that Cork probably would be favourites for that game. But then you take into account how poorly they travelled to Derry, it makes you wonder what Cork are going to show up next week.
it just seems to be even like this year, Paddy, like, such an inconsistent teams we have. Kildare's inconsistent. I even put Cavan in that bracket. Like it's probably the team of inconsistencies nearly in Division Two this year.
Aye, and it's not just Division
Jacqueline
Two.
Hyde.
It's across all the divisions. Like week in week out, you just don't know what you're getting. With any side, like we joke about it in that WhatsApp group, that wee bit of a prediction thing we're running. Like some of the results, if you actually look back at some of the predictions that we have made and how wrong we have been, you'd wonder do any of us know anything about football. But that's just the nature of the results across all the divisions.
Hence
Um,
why I'm leading, Paddy.
that's why you're leading is right. But like you just couldn't predict what's going on in some of these divisions for some of these teams.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. And I say, like in terms of Cork, we know their capabilities. We know how many good footballers they have. We know that on their day they can challenge anybody in the top four, top five. But as I say, then they go out and produce what they produced last week in Derry, and you're thinking, oh, like Jesus, any team that's serious about playing Division One football, any team that's serious about winning a Munster Championship or competing with Kerry, you just can't be as flat as that last week. But then they turn it around within 6, 7 days and produce what they produced at the weekends. It's unbelievable. So what Cork shows up next week, God knows.
Yeah, and even Tyrone there to a great lot of inconsistency there. And then you'd Mead against Tyrone in Croke Park, Paddy, on Saturday night. It was Mead 324, Tyrone 222, 222. I think the scoreline's that big. It barely just say it. Absolutely incredible game. So expansive, so open, scores galore. Jesus, these new rules have really brought such life to it. Robbie Brennan just has Mead played in such a nice brand of football. He's really drove them on there, in with a shout of promotion. And then obviously Malach O'Rourke will be very disappointed they couldn't. And in fairness, as you did say during the week, you thought Tyrone were going to get the job done, but me just had different thoughts.
Tyrone started the game really well. I thought my prediction was going to come through. Tyrone seemed really up for it. We know that they always seem to get a bit of a bounce whenever they go to Croke Park. But no, look, Meath to me are one of the most exciting teams to watch. They've got power, they've got pace, they've a range of 2 point kickers, which they utilised very, very well the other night. And they got a wee bit of momentum and a wee bit of a run on Tyrone in that third quarter where they kicked a lot of 2 pointers and just Tyrone just didn't have the answer. For me, the concerning thing from a Tyrone point of view would be defensively. They've leaked some really, really big scores now from their point of view. I think 5 points might still keep them in the division. I think even Kildare won. Tyrone will have them. The head-to-head's a draw, and I think score difference Tyrone will be all right. But I think there's still a possibility if results go against them, that Tyrone could be playing Tailteann Cup, which is concerning for them. A team that's obviously competed in the All Ireland semi-final last year, and a team that we expected to be in the hunt for promotion out of Division Two. So it's been disappointing. It's been very, very inconsistent from Tyrone. The only two teams they've beat has been the teams below them in the league. The positive, or the if you're looking for positives for Tyrone, the fact that Darren McCurry get minutes in the legs is probably a positive. Dara Canavan obviously was meant to go on his travels, didn't get away. Obviously, what's happened in the Middle East, I presume, was the reason for that. So he's back.
Yeah.
So that'll be a positive.
Niall Morgan situation.
Well, the Niall Morgan situation, by all accounts, he was missing due to a wedding or a stag do or something like that. We talked about the fact that the likes of them things, you don't usually have them issues in around a senior inter-county squad. But look, we talked last week also the fact that if Tyrone turn around and beat Armagh in the championship in 2 or 3 weeks' time, we'll be saying, Malach O'Rourke's a genius.
Well, sure, yeah.
For letting these things sort of take place and happen. But no, Tyrone just all doesn't seem on the surface of it, all just doesn't seem right there. As I say, defensively, they're very, very open. We know they have good attackers and they're scoring well enough, but they're just leaking too much at the back.
Ethan Jordan had a great. It was on the Sunday game last night. Ethan Jordan had a great game. Matty Donny even played well. Dara Canavan, was he playing at the weekend?
Canavan come on, yeah, he came on as a sub, so he's
Yeah,
back.
but I know you kind of said about Ethan Jordan, maybe come championship, will he be there? But geez, he was excellent at the weekend.
Well, this is it. He obviously had a good start to the league, and then he lost his position. And I suppose he had been in the panel in the past, and previous managers deemed maybe that he wasn't good enough for that level. It seemed to be after having a good start to the league and losing his place that maybe that was going to be the case again, that maybe he fell out of favour. But then at the weekend he was through in a game and he had a really, really good game. He is a 2 point option too. He's got serious feet. Even he's maybe, say he's not he's not Dara Canavan, he's not Rory Canavan, he's not Darren McCurry, but is he worth carrying for even that 2 point option? Because he definitely is very, very accurate, and even from place balls too. So it'll be interesting to see what we throw and line up in a couple of weeks' time. Like, they have Armagh coming, and I know we'll get to Armagh, but Armagh looked a serious outfit at the weekend, and you'd worry about Tyrone and about the centre of the defence and how easily they're giving up goal chances and leaking goals, with Armagh coming to town in a number of weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely. Malik O'Rourke has a tough job ahead of him. Let's see, can he steer the ship around? And then in the last game of Division 2, Paddy, over the weekend, it was Offaly against Cavan. It was Offaly 3-15, Cavan 2-20 in Glennisk, O'Connor Park, Tullamore. Paddy, I went to this game, seen a tweet last night saying there was about 750 people at it. Maybe just goes to show maybe where both counties are at, supporters, interest, where the levels are at maybe from both teams. But Cavan did get the job done at the end. Ryan Donoghue, a lot of people saying it was a dubious 2-pointer at the end, but I wear my Cavan hat and said that it did creep in, and it just looked like a point, but I don't want to be too controversial, but he was very good. Paddy Lynch kicked a few nice scores as well. I just would have I'd have concerns maybe about our defence just currently. I think we're leaking too much. I think on another day, better teams would punish a lot of Cavan's mistakes. Yes, I think we were quite sloppy. We were pedestrian at times, quite slow kickouts again. I think I've remarked on this a couple of weeks ago in the pod, just about, not maybe having much of a midfield at the minute. We do have Kieran Brady from Corofin there at the minute. He only came on as a sub yesterday, so I don't know, is he fully at the races? Is he fully fit? Like, I hope we do get a bit of a bang from a book with that new man coming in. But again, overall, probably not a fantastic performance. Nice to get out of there, obviously, with the 2 points, and probably, well, hopefully secure promotion at this stage. I know you're kind of relying on Kildare on the other end of it, but Offaly, to their credit, they worked so hard. They really gave us a lot of headaches throughout. But I just think Cavan's performance very lackluster once again. I think Dermot McCabe will be happy to get the 2 points and safety, but things will need to improve for Monaghan as well, Paddy.
Aye, I think, well, you were obviously at the game, as you said, John. At half time, you were in a decent position, and you were playing with the breeze in the second half. And again, I was driving home from Trin, and I was listening to that game on the radio back and forth with updates. You're sort of expecting the commentator on the radio to come and say Cavan now have stretched their lead to 7, 8, 9, 10, with the breeze in the second half. But they just couldn't seem to pull clear of Offaly. Whether or not that, as you say, was down to Offaly's doggedness and hanging in there, or the fact that Cavan have a lack of quality, I don't know. But I suppose the one positive you can take from the game was the fact that they got the 2 points. I don't see Kildare going and beating Louth in the last game, which means Cavan probably will have secured their Division 2 status for another season. But it has been a poor enough league campaign, in all fairness. Only 2 wins, sitting a score difference of -20. There's big improvements needed ahead of the championship. Only you'll know this, or you'll know this more than me. Is there many more men to come into that panel? Is there many injuries? Obviously, Paddy Lynch has come back the last number of weeks, which is a positive. He's a real good player. But you have Monaghan coming up, who are obviously not going well either. So yeah, you've a bit of work to do ahead of the championship. Monaghan's definitely a winnable game, and there's no doubt about that. But you've Derry coming next week in Celtic Park. Derry are usually very good at home. They're going to be hurting from the fact that they lost that game against Louth. Derry score difference is +42. They're going to want to finish that league with a bit of a bang. You'd worry for Cavan maybe going to Celtic Park next week, I think.
Absolutely, Paddy, and really, really difficult place to go. I think we struggled anytime we went up there. I always remember, I think you just retired in 2012, but we played just in 2013. Skinner was playing, and warm summer's day in July, we came up and bet just after extra time. It was a remark. I'll always remember that game. But
I remember that game, yeah.
Oh, Paddy was just ferocious. We had a really good team that year. We had a really good team, and obviously, I think the talk going into that game was, Derry will just walk over you and it'll be no bother. And I think Skinner put up some tweets saying, I have to plan for these quarterfinals at Croke Park. So I think he put the bad luck on you.
I have that with him, all right. To put his foot on it. No, look, as you say, like, Cavan, whilst obviously they won that day, any time that I'd have been playing at Cavan and Celtic Park, we'd usually have got the better of them. As I say, Derry will be smarting from last week. They'll be looking a big performance ahead of the championship. There's still an outside chance Derry can gain promotion.
Yeah.
If results go their way. So I do fear for Cavan get up there.
Be tough, will be tough. Because I think
Just
even
as you say, the apathy maybe around the place, only 750 at the game. The
that's
support,
off Leanne Cavan, yeah.
the support doesn't seem to have sort of got behind the team.
No.
Maybe they don't see realistically they don't see that there's nothing to shout about at the minute. Maybe I don't know. You'll know more of this as the players there. Um, the new management team is it taking a wee bit of time to bed in,
Mm.
but no, they've had a poor league campaign by Cavan definitely. And I say I would fear for them next week.
Yeah, it'd be really difficult. And I suppose we talk about these kind of new management teams, and obviously with Dermot McCabe, Dermot Scully, and Chris Collins. Like, and it probably maybe it does take a bit of time for management teams to get their points across, to get their tactics across. And we see what Fermanagh there, like star-studied, I suppose, backroom team there, and they only registered their first win over the weekend. But Cavan, injury-wise, we're not actually too bad at the minute. No, Tristan Hoffman, he's from Arva there. He done his he got a bad injury there a couple of weeks ago. I think he's come back, but it's great to see Paddy Lynch kind of fighting back there now. He does look fully fit, probably could be getting a tiny bit more out of him. The likes of Darren McFeedy, Kieran, the Hall of Brady, I suppose some of the old stagers, but again, if there's any kind of young lads that want to make a bit of a breakthrough, we'll have to kind of see it very sharp because again, it's such a quick turnaround for championship. I know there will be challenges before championship, but look, it was a good win yesterday, but I would fear for St Celtic Park this weekend. I think it's a really difficult place to go to, especially ahead of the championship, and Derry will be hurting, and it's a nice spin up to Derry as well, Paddy. So obviously
Where do you have Monaghan at in the championship? Is it somewhere?
That's Clonus, I think, Paddy.
Close, right. No, look, you mentioned three names there, like Colin Brady, McVitie, and Paddy Lynch. You still possess quality performers, like you know what I mean. There's no doubt about it.
There is a good team there, Paddy.
Yeah, no, there's still quality performers, and look, there's nothing brings out the best in Cavan like a Monaghan game, and particularly maybe going to Clonus to turn them over in their own backyard, like given the rivalry there, and the fact that Monaghan aren't going well. So that's definitely a winnable championship game, and you know the way the season works, John. One victory can just shift all momentum in your favour. You know, if they can go there to Clonus, and get the one, who knows what could happen. Ulster, as you know, has produced some seriously strange results over the years. But ahead of that championship game against Monaghan, you'd want to be going to Derry next week and putting in a performance. You wouldn't want to be going there having taken a tanking against Derry, put it like that.
We have to be competitive.
You know, that'll do nothing for morale. So, you know, I would say Cavan this week should batten down the hatches and, you know, should go to Derry. And I'm not saying they can't win the game. Hey, as I said, Derry have been inconsistent themselves, but the last thing they want is to go there and play open football against Derry, because Derry, when they get a run on you in Celtic Park, Derry can rack up big scores, as they showed 2 weeks ago against Cork, and the last thing they need is get a tanking.
Yeah, it'll be absolutely very interesting to follow that one this weekend, but it's a tricky assignment for the Cabinets without a doubt. And then the last couple of games over the weekend, Paddy, in Division 1, on Saturday, you had Kerry against Mayo. It was Kerry 229, Mayo 19 points in Austin Stack Park. We were kind of talking off air about, I suppose, the bubble being slightly bust now for Andy Moore and Mayo, obviously, after such a good start to the league campaign. Kerry were absolutely awesome. David Clifford again, Sean O'Shea's, I don't know, Paddy, did he the trajectory of that ball was like a golf shot, but it was a remarkable kick off the ground. Kerry were absolutely incredible, surely big All-Ireland contenders.
Look, I think if anybody was ever in any doubt about who the best team in Ireland is, I think we've seen them at the weekend again. The new rules just shut them down to the ground. The expansive play, the forwards they have, they're going to take a bit of beating. As you say, the bubbles burst a wee bit with Andy Moran's sort of start with Mayo. They had a couple of good wins at the start of the league. To me, they just don't possess the players that are good enough to compete at the sharp end of things. They're a decent side, yeah, definitely a decent Division 1 side, but you know, Kerry are on a different level. Clifford, Shea, Dylan Guinea. I think with Kerry, they've 5-6 forwards who can score, they've half backs who can score, midfielders who can score. There's so many threats to put out. And barring a really a bad day at the office, or barring a couple of injuries to key men, you would question that who would be good enough to stop Kerry this year again.
Yeah. just various. And I know it was a busy day of sport on Saturday, and I think the game was on RT1, and I know it was clashing with rugby, it was clashing with soccer. But I think anyone that surely got their eyes on this game, they just would have been had to be so impressed. And even Jack O'Connor, I think it was the first time I think I ever seen him smiling after the game. I think he was relatively happy about Kerry's performance, but it was just remarkable. They're strong contenders for Sam Maguire once again. I think Andy Moore and probably has got his rude awakening now in the last couple of weeks about the intercounty management game, and you get a few wins, everyone patching the back. But what's the saying, Paddy? A clap in the back's not too far away from kicking the arse too.
Aye, that's it. Look, hey, Mayo have 8 points. So Andy Moran will be. I know the result of the weekend and how heavily a beating they got isn't ideal, but the fact of amassed 8 points and potentially even still get to a league final, he'll be quite encouraged by some of the performances in the league. As I said, when it comes to the sharp end of it, but I just don't think they possess the players to live with the likes of a Kerry. But Kerry have 15 pure ballers. Like every one of them's comfort on the ball. Every one of them can, run at pace, score. They're all comfortable in taking possession. The new rules just shoot them down to the ground. They just play with pure speed, and their attacking play, when it clicks, is phenomenal. As I said, they're out there on their own in terms of being the number one contender for the All Ireland, I think. And barring a bad day at the office, I don't think anybody will live with them when they're hitting the form they had at the weekend.
Yeah, so good to watch, and they do your heart good. All us big GA enthusiasts. And then the last game on Saturday in Division 1, you had Dublin against Armagh. It was Dublin 125, Armagh 224 in Croke Park. Great win for Armagh, Paddy. It has to be said, Kieran McGeeney was absolutely happy, pissed off, annoyed. Like, I don't know, do you get a chance to watch any of his post-match interviews? I think it was Colin Parkinson always likes to get a few jibes out of him, and he was going on about David Goff once again. And McGeeney, I don't know, Paddy, and obviously you probably know better than me, but he seems to just take a while to warm to things. I think he's still pissed off with the new rules. He's pissed off with the referees. And is he happy, annoyed? It's very hard to judge McGeeney at this juncture.
At this stage, I think everybody tunes into his post-match interviews just for the entertainment value alone. As you say, there's a mixture of joy, and then there's a mixture of criticism around the referees and the rules. But look, he was obviously highly critical of what happened at half time. Charlie Oak seemed to be singled out, and I think he maybe had a point at this stage. But look, Armagh, what a phenomenal comeback! Like at half time, you probably wouldn't give them a chance. But you talk about momentum swings in a match. There is no team that outside of Kerry that can capitalise on momentum swings the way Armagh can. Like whenever they took over at midfield, they really took over. They really went to town in that 10-15 minute spell. They just totally dominated, obliterated the Dublin kick out, score after score after score, just pure power, pure pace. The wide open spaces of Croke Park really shutting down to the ground. And what a goal by Oisin Connaughton. Obviously Muggsy's goal, against Dublin a number of years ago probably has went down as one of the best ever goals to be scored at Croke Park. But the pace and the direct running power of Oisin Connaughton and the finish, he nearly ripped the back of the net. Like, it was, what a strike. It's up there with Muggsy's goal, in my opinion. Is just,
what was that geezer said after the game? He was hoping he was hit it over the bar, but he said he's going to hit him a box when the next time he sees him.
well, look, Armagh, there's been a lot of criticism around Armagh and their inability to score goal chances throughout the course of the league, but there was no doubt whenever Conte had that ball in front of the keeper, there was no doubt where it was going. As I say, absolutely lifted the roof of the net.
Oh, you thumped it. Stephen McDonnell-esque.
Yeah, and you could see the expression, the relief after he hit it, like just pure raw emotion and passion. Once that ball did hit the net, and as I said, I really, really enjoyed the game. What that game showed too is how nearly impossible it is to manage a game now. Like,
oh, please.
6-7 points up with 10 minutes to go, the game's still not over. Like,
that's the beauty of it, but it must be so fucking hard to probably, yeah.
Well, as a manager, it's crazy because the game's never over till it's over. Like Jared Brennan would be sitting at half time, rubbing his hands, thinking, we more or less have this game won. But there was nothing really he could do. And once Armagh took over at midfield, like, how do you change that momentum shift? We're used to seeing Dublin down through the years managing games, playing games in their terms, but you can't do that anymore. So look, fair play to Armagh. Whenever they got the momentum, they went with it. And look, score after score, the introduction of Oisin O'Neill, the introduction of Andrew Murnan at the right times were critical and key as well. So it gives Armagh a fighting chance, obviously, now of staying up. And we talked last week, I said to you last week, if Kerry were to win and Armagh to win, it would set up a blockbuster next week in the athletic ground. So really looking forward to that game next week, Armagh against Kerry. It looks as if Kerry want to try and win a league title, so they need to go to Armagh and get some potentially, because obviously we were only a point behind, Roscommon only a point behind. Armagh still need to get the one to guarantee their safety. It's actually a game I might go to this weekend, because I think that'll be a humdinger.
Yeah, no, I think that would definitely be. I'd rather go to that than Celtic Park, Paddy. I'd put it to you that way. Johnny Murder, our trusted colleague, said to us the Rian O'Neill is not back with Armagh. So, Jesus Christ, Paddy, what is wrong with these whispers we hear from?
Well, this is it. I suppose we talked about it last week. We spent a bit of time talking about the Armagh injuries, and Johnny had told us that Merlin might be playing. He told us that Turbot wasn't playing, and told us that Oisin O'Neill wasn't playing, and he was right that the two boys did come on to good effect. But I think everybody was sort of waiting with bated breath. We were expecting a tweet at the last minute to say that Rian O'Neill has number 28 in the Armagh panel or whatever, but it didn't come. So, we just don't know if it's true or not. Is he back? We know he's back with Cross Glen and apparently playing really, really well. But is he back in that setup? Look, who knows? I suppose we'll not find that out until Championship now, really.
Mm. Absolutely. Well, hopefully our sources are going correct, and if they're not correct, we will look like absolute fools, Paddy. Last games of the weekend on Sunday, the 15th of March in Division 1, Paddy. You had Roscommon against Donegal. It was Roscommon 2-20. Donegal 20 points in King and Moffat, Dr. Hyde Park. Well, Paddy, you got this one right.
Aye, look, again, inconsistencies around Roscommon and the performances. The Hyde's a very, very difficult place to go, and Roscommon have good players. And obviously, if the St. Bridges boys come back into it, I just felt this week that that after the poor performance against Dublin, that we would have seen a reaction. Roscommon obviously had a good first half, used the win to their advantage. Now, again, listen to the radio on the way home. Donegal started the second half off, kicked a few 2-pointers, and you thought they would reel them in and go on to win the game. I landed into the house and actually seen the last 20 minutes on TV, and brutal conditions, it must be said, but Roscommon played them really, really well. Defended tirelessly, caught Donegal on the break a few times, and just got the scores that they needed. And it was a brilliant team goal from back to front that sealed the victory for them. So good result for Roscommon. Look, Jim McGuinness will not be that worried about it. I still think Donegal said this last week. I still think that Donegal will go to Monaghan in the last game and get the 2 points they need to get the league final. McGuinness did say it's not the end of the world if they don't, that they're firmly looking towards the championship. But I do expect that they will get to the league final. And I do think it'll be them and Kerry, and that'll be a good warm-up game for them ahead of obviously the Ulster Championship. So disappointing result for Donegal at the weekend, but conditions did play a huge part in that game.
Yeah, definitely. And then last game of the weekend, Paddy, you had Monaghan against Galway. It was Monaghan 2-9, Galway 120 in Grattan Park in Inniskeen. Listen, obviously, the post-match comments by John Mariport. Joyce just delighted to get out of there with the 2 points. They were happy out. I think it was a foregone conclusion. This particular game sends Monaghan down to Division 2. Obviously, listen to Gabriel Bannigan after the game. I think he's been a cut of frustrated figure all league, really. It's been a really tough league for Monaghan, compounded yesterday with another loss. Potentially will lose again this weekend. Then obviously full focus on Cavan for the Ulster Championship. But Galway, job done, box tick, 2 points.
2 points, but there was very little quality in that game. I know conditions were poor. The pitch looked heavy. Underfoot, a lot of people slipping and sliding. The wind obviously was a massive factor, but I just thought the game was dead. As you say, it was nearly like a foregone conclusion. It was nearly as if Monaghan had accepted their fate. They did hang in for fairly well for about 45, 50 minutes. But then there was maybe like a 5 or 6 minute spell where Galway had a couple of 3 2-pointers, Finnerty and whatnot, and they just stretched their lead. And Monaghan playing with zero or little confidence in a minute. They just don't seem to have the personnel Monaghan at the minute. Now we talked already about all the people they're missing with retirement and injuries and whatnot, but they're devoid of any real confidence going into the championship. And it was a really, really poor performance. And they're probably going to end up the league pointless, which I don't know when the last time that happened in Division 1, because we're used to seeing everybody beat everybody in Division 1, but Monaghan really have been the whipping boys. I think their score difference is nearly minus 60 or 70 or something. As you say, it's been a really, really poorly campaign on their part, and they haven't been helped by injuries and retirements.
It's tough on Monaghan, and obviously, okay, the Caveman talk with Monaghan, and but like it's obviously what Bannigan saying after, like there has been so many injuries, and unfortunately for Monaghan, it's Ballybay, you've obviously Scottstown, I suppose Inniskeen is their pick of players that don't have many clubs. Paddy underage hasn't been hectic for Monaghan. It could be a couple of years of transition.
It probably will be, and probably going down to Division 2 is the place to to redevelop again. As I said at the start of the pod, we're used to seeing Monaghan getting results against all odds. The last number of years and retaining their Division 1 status, sometimes in the last round of results, and needing results to go their way and whatnot. But no, they do need to inject a bit of youth, a bit of freshness into that side. And Division 1 is probably not the place to do that. So Division 2 they'll be better suited there next year. So they will. But I do expect, look, they're a proud footballing county, and I do expect them to be back. You don't lose players of the calibers of the Hugheses and McManus and whatnot, and these boys, and and just continue on as if nothing ever happened. Any county would suffer the loss of them players. So they've just been hit badly, and you say they haven't got a massive pick there. They haven't got as many clubs as some of the other big counties, so it's going to take a wee bit of time to rebuild that whole thing.
God, Paddy, I think I said this a couple of months ago, maybe last year, potentially on the pod, that I think Kieran Hughes would have been really good with these new rules. And obviously, you probably played against Kieran numerous times and Darren, but I think Kieran with that left point and left foot, and we've seen him for Scottstown in the club championship and how good he is with it. I think the new rules, he'd be dancing about the place, but unfortunately, he just didn't fancy it for Monaghan.
No, and look, he's been a great servant to Monaghan, and I think what seems to have happened there is maybe amongst themselves, obviously Scottstown have had a long season, and he's just opted out. He's probably felt that it's time for fresh blood, and as I say, Monaghan are going to have to go down to Division 2, and they're going to have to introduce a few new players. Like, and I know they haven't been shooting the lights out in terms of winning things at underage level, but they have had a few decent under 20 sides the last few years that were competitive with the likes of the Derrys and the Thrones of this world. So there's plenty of good footballers coming through in Monaghan, but it's just going to take a wee bit of time.
Yeah, and Gabriel basically saying after the game, thank God they weren't in Division 2 because they could have went down to Division 3. So obviously very, very, very honest in his post-match interview, making no doubt about it, as always with Gabriel in them games. Well, Paddy, Sunday, the 22nd of March, you literally have every single game on Sunday, and a lot of these games are being televised on GA Plus and TG Carr, and fair play to TG Carr as usual with such star-studied coverage. Paddy, I suppose in a word or two in some of these games on the Alliance National Football League Division 1, you have Armagh against Kerry in Box Athletic Grounds at 3:30. Of course, game will be live on GA Plus.
Yeah, what a game, as I said. I actually might go down to that training Sunday morning in Donaghmore, so I might just nip on down the road to Armagh. But it'll be a sellout. Like, Armagh obviously still have the threat of relegation. They need to get something out of that game, and Kerry, if they want to get to a league final, need to get something out of that game because we were only sitting and Roscommon a point behind. So I'd say both teams are really loving the fact that they've such a big fixture ahead of the championship. Like, if ever you needed a fixture to let you know where you're at, that is it. So Armagh again talked about the fact that they missed so many goal chances through the league. They've actually played well enough through the league, and they probably played well enough to be sitting with more than 4 points. But it is what it is. So I'm really looking forward to that game, and I do think home advantage might swing it in Armagh's favour because there's no team does momentum, as I say, like Armagh. And that place will be a sea of orange on Sunday, and they usually put in really, really good performances in the athletic grounds. And as I say, don't be surprised you do see the likes of maybe Rain or somebody being introduced. That's the sort of thing McGinney could pull. That's the sort of thing he could pull.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely.
Like, he'll try and get every single thing that he can, every single advantage he can to get for Armagh's favour, and that's like something that McGinney could pull at the last minute here.
Yeah, God. And tickets could be very hard got for that particular game, Paddy, and leading into the championship, the timing is absolutely perfect. You've Galway against Dublin in Pearse Stadium at 3:30, and of course, the game will be live on TG Carr.
I think Galway won that game. Again, Galway will be happy enough with their league campaign. They've been missing a lot of men. They've introduced a lot of players. 2 wins, 2 draws, inconsistent but decent. I think home advantage will swing it for them, and I think that'll consign Dublin to Division Two. I don't think Dublin just have been good enough this year. Even get back to the first game against Monaghan that night, where they were fairly lucky to even get the result that night. Monaghan must have a hell of a lot of goal chances, if you remember. They're just searching for that consistency. Obviously, new management and all, Ger Brennan, and trying to introduce some new players and whatnot. They've obviously had their fair share of injuries too. So it's been a poor enough league campaign from Dublin's point of view. But I think Galway will get the points at the weekend, and they'll be happy enough where they're at come championship. Given the fact that they're probably going to get to a Connacht final anyway. And they've plenty of players like Comer and Walsh, and these boys came back into the squad. So I think Galway will win that game.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting game to follow this weekend. And then you have Mayo against Roscommon in Hastings and Shirts, McHale Park at 3:30. And course game will be live on TG Car YouTube.
Yeah, that 50-50 game. Both them teams sitting on 8 points. And both have an outside chance, depending on the Kerry result, of getting to a league final. I wouldn't rule out a draw here. Games between the two sides are generally fairly tight. Roscommon obviously very, very impressive at the weekend. Mayo obviously a poor result against Kerry. Will be sort of scratching the head about where actually they're really at and how far away they actually are. So no, that will be a tight game, and it could go either way, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a draw here. But as I said, I think, depending on the Armagh Kerry result, one of them two could find themselves in the league final. And for either one of the two teams, if they did, that would be a massive boost for them heading into the championship.
And then the last game in Division 1 over the weekend, Paddy, you have Monaghan against Donegal in St. Chinnerk's Park Clones at 3:30. Interesting game here, Paddy. Obviously, Donegal, they probably don't know what they really want at this stage. And obviously, Jim McGuinness laughing after the game, saying he doesn't want a league final. Monaghan haven't got a win yet. Does Donegal feel sorry for them and let Monaghan have their first 2 points of the weekend to start the league campaign?
I don't think so. And I wouldn't read too much into what Jim was saying about maybe Donegal not wanting to win the league. I think for that group of players, Silverwell would be welcome. I do expect them to go to Clones on Sunday and get a result and get to a league final. The thing with Donegal to me have a strong panel. I said this last week. You see the likes of Jamie Brennan, for example. I think it's maybe only his first run out of the weekend. The likes of Mark Curran in defence. Donegal, the extra game will do Donegal no harm, because Jim McGuinness needs football to keep all them players happy. He's working with a big squad there. There's a lot of players who haven't played much football because he has been chopping and changing the team. So I don't necessarily think that a league final would be a bad thing for Donegal. It'll keep plenty of boys in football. So we expect them to go to Monaghan on Sunday and get the result, and expect them to be in a league final.
Yeah, I think more misery for Monaghan, unfortunately. And then the Division 2 action this weekend, Paddy, you have Derry against Cavan in Celtic Park, a quarter past 1, and of course the game will be live on TG Car YouTube. Well, thank God for that.
Look, I think that could be a difficult enough day for Cavan. They'll obviously be looking very closely at Kildare and Louth to make sure Kildare get nothing out of that game, which means they will be secured safe in Division 2. I think Derry will be hurting from the result in RD last week, and I think with home advantage, Derry will win that game with a bit to spare.
Oh, could be a long day at the Ulster Cavan, lads. We'll wait and see. And then you've Kildare against Louth in Cedral St. Conleth's Park at 1:15. Of course, game will be live on TG Car, Paddy.
And look, Kildare need something out of that game if they're to avoid going back to Division 3. So you expect them to throw everything at it. The reality is Kildare just haven't been good enough. They started the league off the first couple of games. You thought, they're definitely good enough to compete in this division, but it's went all horribly wrong. They've took a couple of bad patients in the last few weeks. Now it is a derby as such, and there'll be no love lost between them two sides. But the very fact that Louth are going as well as they are, and the very fact that Louth have something to play for in terms of an outside chance of promotion, I think that Louth will do enough to win that game, even though, as I say, Kildare will throw the kitchen sink at it. But ultimately, I think Kildare are going to end up going down a long way off.
Oh, it's a tough station there for Brian Flanagan and obviously David Burke there as well. And we talk about a competitive Leinster and the likes of Meath, Loud, and Kildare kind of trying to get the show back in the road. And obviously Kildare's form in recent weeks, Paddy, hasn't been good enough. And even to even put them in a conversation of trying to win a Leinster title this year, you couldn't just be saying it.
Probably not, no. But at the start of the league campaign, you probably were. You were thinking,
Yeah.
as you were thinking to yourself, Leinster, Dublin have come back to the pack. Meath obviously are going well, Louth's going well, and you would realistically have said until they have an outside chance of competing for Leinster title. But given the results in the last 3 or 4 weeks, you would probably say not. And it's disappointing because I say they started off the league so well and they looked like a team that could go and compete. The wheels have totally come off ever since the second half of the Derry game. Like they were up against Derry. They had two extra men pitch against Derry, and then they conceded two quick fire goals, and it seems to be their season has just imploded from there on in. Like at half time in that Derry game, you'd have said they were odds on to win that game, which would have been a massive victory. Would have put them in 5 points after 3 games. You're thinking, geez, that's some start to the league. But they haven't had a point since. Their score difference sitting at -20. They're a team playing with very very little confidence. They're leaking big scores. It's just hard to put your finger on what's went wrong because obviously Brian Flanagan's a good operator. Davy Burke's there, Aidan O'Rourke, who I've been involved with. Aidan's good enough operator too. It's disappointing for Kildare because again they're a county I love watching. They're a proud football county. I love Glenn Ryan back in the day and whatnot. It's they're one of them counties you believe should be playing their trade higher than Division 3, but it looks as if that's where they're going again this year.
Oh, they won't like it up there. They will not like it, especially when you thought they were progressing, but definitely not this year, Paddy. And then you've Offaly against Meath in Glennisk, O'Connor Park at 1:15. Of course, the game will be live on TG Car YouTube. I think that could be a very, very long evening. Well, lunchtime for Offaly again, Paddy.
Aye, well, look, obviously something no points. Confidence is low, and obviously Meath need to get something out of that game to secure promotion. You'd expect them to get the 2 points that they need. The impressive thing with me for Meath is to see their size, their power, their pace, uh, their running power, their spread of scores, their ability to kick 2 pointers. Now going to uh, going to Offaly is different than playing on Croke Park, which suits me. But I still think that they'll get enough, they'll do enough to win that game. Offaly will obviously make it hard for them. They're a proud footballing county. They'll not lie down. It's Leinster Derby and all the rest. But I think Meath will win that game with five or 6 points to spare.
Oh, I don't know, Paddy. Could even be more. I think Meath are absolutely fine at the minute. And oh, Offaly weren't great in patches yesterday, but we will wait and see. And then last game of the weekend in Division 2, Paddy, you have Tyrone against Cork in O'Neill's Healy Park, 1:15, and the game will be live on TG Car YouTube.
Aye, well, I suppose can the real Cork please stand up, isn't it? Like, did they produce a performance like they did at the weekend past there, where they're shooting the lights out, or did they produce something like they produced in Derry a couple of weeks ago where they rolled over very easily? Tyrone obviously are decent usually in Healy Park and Oma. They've had a very poor league campaign. They'll want to get a wee bit of momentum ahead of championship. You'd expect that the likes of Darren McCurry will see more game time. Dara Canavan will probably start that game ahead of championship. You know, the Tyrone team has been chopping and changing. It seems as if Malik O'Rourke struggling to find himself what his best 15 is. You'll be thinking that he'll be sort of playing as close to a championship side as he can this weekend because it'll be their last test ahead of the Armagh game. I think Tyrone with home advantage could win that game still. But look, I predicted Tyrone at the weekend. I was wrong. So God knows, I say both sides are just so inconsistent. And look, that game can go either way. Cork obviously need to win it to be sure of promotion. There's an outside chance if Cork lose that game. If Louth and Derry won the game, three teams will finish on 10 points. This is providing Meath obviously go to Offaly as we expect and one, and that means Derry could potentially get promoted on score difference. So from a Derry point of view, I'm hoping that Tyrone do win that game. Obviously, that transpires that Louth won, Derry won, and the three teams end up on 10 points, and Derry go home and go up on score advantage. But look, I'd say that game can go either way. Really unpredictable game.
I think we'll only need to have the calculators out this weekend, Paddy. And then Division 3 action over the weekend. You have Down against Laois in Park Esler in Newry at 2 p.m. interesting game there, as you were kind of saying earlier on with Conor Lafferty. Like, does he maybe rotate things? Does he give lads a chance down or up to Division Two now? And with the Laois come to town there, just keep winning, Paddy. Like, is winning just the best formula?
Well, it's hard to know. Look, personal preference, isn't it? They've secured what they wanted out of the league. They've got their Division Two status next year. If it was me, look, personally, I think giving squad members game time would be more important, keeping everybody happy. I do know that Conor Laverty is one of these managers. If you're not involved in the match day playing 20, 18, 19, 20 players, he does let their players go and play club football. He uses that sensible approach because he knows that getting game time in the legs is important for all players. So we do expect that the fact that they're already promoted, that he will use this match as an opportunity to give his squad members 60 or 70 minutes in the legs. So now, is the down subs stroke B side good enough to still beat Laois? They probably are, to be honest. They've a good strong panel going there. So I think even down while the resting players probably still could win that game anyway, because Laois don't really have much to play for.
See what Conor Lafferty does this weekend. And then you've Limerick against Fermanagh in Mick Neville Park, Rathkeale at 2 p.m.
Yeah, Limerick home advantage, need to win that game and hope the Sligo are beat to stay up. But Fermanagh obviously had a good one at the weekend, 50-50 game. Both sides really inconsistent. Both sides be really disappointed with the league campaign to date. I think I would give Fermanagh the shout there, given the fact that they had a good result at the weekend, and maybe the corner is starting to turn, and maybe confidence. They'll get confidence from the result last weekend. So I think Fermanagh to go to Limerick and get the 2 points there.
See, and then you have the other games. You have Sligo against Clare in Dr. Markovitz Park at 2 p.m.
Yeah, again, 50-50 game. Sligo sitting in 4, Clare sitting in 6. Clare have nothing really to play for there. No chance of promotion now after the result in Ennis at the weekend. I think Sligo home advantage will win that game and stave off any fears that they might have of relegation.
Okay, absolutely. And then you have Wexford against Westmeath in Chadwick's Wexford Park at 2 p.m. And the game will be live on the TG Carroll player.
Yeah, that's a big game. Hey, look, winner takes all, isn't it? I would give a hesitant vote to Westmeath. We talked about how Mark Hughes come in there and seems to have done a good job. He seems to have the word coming out of Westmeath is that the players are really enjoying the new setup, really enjoying the football that he's trying to play and the coaching and whatnot. But look, it could go either way. But if I was having to pick anybody, I think Westmeath will win that game. Even though Wexford's a very difficult place to go to, we know the elements always play a big part in games down in Wexford Park. So look, there's going to be huge swings in all them games in terms of the weather. Like we look at the weather last weekend and look at how the wind dictated, and your ability to use the wind and kick 2-pointers, which will be massive. So the weather, I think this weekend, this time of the year, is going to have a massive impact in all them games. And I say Wexford, there's no one to replace in Wexford Park to go to.
Oh, you can say it again. Or Salthill, Paddy. Or Salthill. Jesus Christ, for my hits. Have you ever played in Salthill?
Oh, same thing, yeah. Anywhere down the west at all, John.
Uh-huh.
But I Salthill. Now, listen, I used to hate going down to the west of Ireland to play National League games in the month of February and March because you knew there was always a gale blowing and it was going to be a game of two halves. One half you were going to be shooting from all over the place, and the other half you were struggling to actually carry the ball up the field. Such as the severity of the one down in them parks like Salthill and Wexford.
Yeah, we'll have to get on to Finian Hanley, get a word with Met Aaron or someone, or a bit of a, I don't know what is the story up the west, but we'll get it sorted someday. Division 4, Paddy, Antrim against London in Aaron's own Carrigan in Toonbridge at 1 p.m.
I'm going to say Antrim here. They've obviously 3-1s in the bounce, they're going well. But look, again, the unpredictable nature of this league too. You just don't know. London, as we said, have sitting with 7 points, which is the most they've ever amassed in a league campaign. They still themselves have an outside chance of promotion if results go their way, which is fair play to them. But Antrim, as I say, in the last number of weeks, seem to have had a bit of form. They seem to be scoring very heavily. I think home advantage will swing it for them.
Absolutely. And then you have Carlow against Leitrim in Netwatch Cullen Park at 1 p.m.
Yeah. Again, hesitant vote to Carlow. Probably at this stage they would like to have a promotion in the bag. They still haven't got promotion in the bag yet, given their shock 2 defeats in the last 2 weeks. But I do think they'll do enough of the weekend to get the result. But look, you just wouldn't know with Leitrim. We talked earlier on about how they have produced some really, really top class performances. But they're searching for a wee bit of consistency themselves. But again, I'm going to say home advantage will favour Carlow here and expect them to get the job done and get promoted to Division 3 next year.
Longford against Wicklow in Glennon Brothers Pierce Park at 1 p.m.
Again, I'm going to vote for my old mate here, Oshin. I think they'll do enough to get the result, which will get them promotion. They want to be back up. They've played obviously Division 3 football previously. They want to be back up playing their trade there. I think they'll go to Longford and get the result they need. Not that Longford again is a very, very difficult place to go, but look, John, whatever I predict here anyway, right? Given the history of the last 3 or 4 weeks, and my predictions have been all wrong. God knows how any of these results will go. Whoever's watching this or listening to this, whoever I'm predicting, he'd be better sticking 20 quid on the opposite side.
Opposite.
Given how things have been going the last couple of weeks. So I'm saying Wicklow, but that means Longford's going to win.
Well, I tell you what, Paddy, I hope not many done my Sligo tip. I hope I didn't lose anyone money last weekend because Jesus Christ, I don't know what I was thinking last Monday, but it was all right till half time. It was all right till half time, but then nearly doesn't bull the cow, so on and so forth. Yeah. Last game of the weekend, Paddy, you Tipperary against Waterford in FBD Semple Stadium in Thurles at 1 p.m.
I will look Tipperary. Waterford sitting with 0 points at the bottom of the league. I suppose that's at 32nd out of 32 counties. Now it's been a difficult enough league campaign for Waterford. They obviously took a bit of a pacing there at the weekend at home against Antrim, and I don't see them getting anything out of that game. I think Tipperary won that game quite comfortably.
Paddy Bradley, absolutely brilliant. To wrap up, your players to watch this weekend and bets off the weekend. Gamble responsibly, and of course, it's going to be a mad weekend, folks. So strap yourself in.
I player to watch. I said Lachlan Murray last weekend, and he probably hadn't his best game in the Derry jersey after showing really, really positive signs in the last couple of weeks. Players to watch out for this weekend. Look, again, I said this last weekend. I tipped them. I think there's going to be a performance in Tyrone. There has to be. I know they're playing poorly at the minute. They're not playing like the Tyrone that we know, the way they can play. But I think the likes of Dara Canavan and Darren McCurry, I think this weekend, Tyrone at home to Cork, there's a big performance in them to finish off the league ahead of championship. I think them two boys will get game time from the start. They'll have obviously a few weeks training under their belts. Dara after coming back from his holidays, McCurry coming back from injury. So I'm predicting that Tyrone have a big performance against Cork this weekend, and that them two lads will shine.
That's at the weekend, or is that in that?
Well, again, as an outsider, I think Cork will be favourites. But I think if I was tipping anybody as an outside, well, not really an outside bet because Tyrone at home's not really an outsider. But I think Tyrone will get the job done against Cork this weekend. I'm actually going to tip Armagh to beat Kerry. I think home advantage, momentum, and just that sea of orange behind them. I think there'll be a real raucous atmosphere in the athletic ground this weekend. I think that'll be a humdinger of the game. As I say, I might actually go to it myself. So Tyrone, Armagh, Derry, treble. Derry obviously on the handicap to beat Cavan by as much as they want, John.
With 50 points, Paddy probably says you. Kieran Donaghy down in Armagh once again, Paddy. I wouldn't mind being a fly in the wall for that one.
I've forgotten about the return of Kieran Donaghy there. So it's not always the way these things happen after spending 3-4 years with Armagh and doing the job he did with them, and now he's taking obviously a Kerry team up into Armagh to try and get 2 points in the last league game to get to the league final. So brilliant stuff, great entertainment, and as I say, really looking forward to the weekend's football because there's so many.
It's going to be unreal, Paddy. It's going to be unreal.
Listen, as you say, you just want to be on the multi-screen. You know what I mean? It's not just Division 1 either. It's Division 1, 2, 3. Well, 3 sorted now, but it's Division 1, 2, and 4. Even Division 4, which doesn't get a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
The fact that it's gone down to the last game and that all the different permutations, like whoever would have thought the likes of London, could actually be seriously looking at potentially getting up into Division 3. Mad stuff altogether, but fair play to them. So really looking forward to seeing how this all plays out this weekend.
Yeah, God, we'll just have to lock ourselves away all day, Paddy. I don't know. The dinner will just have to come to the door and we'll just, I don't know what's going. Just go
That's
to
it.
so. Uh-huh.
No, that's it. There could be a takeaway on Sunday evening. Just
Go down to the clubhouse, Paddy. Go down to the clubhouse. And a massive shout out, Paddy, as well, to TG Carr. TG Carr's coverage this weekend, live TV, the YouTube. We'd be lost without TG Carr, Paddy. Has to be said.
brilliant. Even using the app and everything else. You know what I mean. So I don't know how many times over the course of the last number of weeks you'll be sitting watching the TV and watching the laptop and watching the phone. You know what I mean, the app and stuff. So it's great that they have that coverage there, and it makes you wonder why there's not more coverage across all the divisions, John. You know what I mean? We have a great product. Obviously the games are more entertaining with the new rules. They're more high scoring. There's more drama, and hopefully, as I say, the likes of RTE and even BBC and some of these other providers, get their finger out and start showing a wee bit more games, in the future, because we have a great product and great spectacle, and as I say, it's end to end stuff at the minute, and it's great entertainment value. Totally.
I think we're better than hurling, Paddy.
You think what? Sorry, John.
I think we're better than the hurling. We're finally better than hurling. I hope. I think.
No, I think so. And again, even the weather and everything, it plays into the drama. You know what I mean? Like, as I said, as a manager, as a coach, you're pulling your hair out because a game's never over till it's over. Like,
yeah.
It being 4 or 5 points up, you can claw that back within 2 or 3 minutes. Just catch 2 kickers and put 2 pointers over the bar, and all of a sudden you're back in a game. So it's actually unbelievable. I wasn't a fan whenever the new rules were proposed. I didn't know how they would work out, but I must say I've totally been converted now. Great stuff altogether. Fair play to Jim Gavin and his team, and the product and the spectacle they have is unbelievable to watch at the minute.
Yeah, Jim Gavin really has dug the game out of a serious hole. It's great, it's exciting, and even Paddy, like we touched on even Kieran McGeeney's interviews. Like the marketing around the game is fantastic at the minute, and McGeeney's interviews. I think Robbie Brennan gives great pieces after the game, the likes of even Jack O'Connor, and in fairness, it took a while, Paddy, but the game is in a brilliant place.
Oh, it's in a brilliant place. Now, I do echo the sentiments of McGeeney. It probably, with the speed of the game, it has become a wee bit more difficult to referee. There's so much going on. The game's played at so much pace. So it makes you wonder, are we going down the route or the line of having to look at maybe having 2 referees in a game? I know that was
proposed. Think so, yeah.
I know that was proposed in the past, and that might be something that we might need to look at, given how fast the game is, particularly at county level. Whether or not you can sustain that for club level, and are there enough referees in counties in the country to do that for club level? I don't know. But definitely at county level, given the high stakes, it might be something that needs looked at and addressed.
Yeah, McGeeney's interviews has just been brilliant today. He starts off happy, pissed off, and oh Jesus, he's box office, Paddy.
Oh, he is, he is. But look, it's part and parcel of Kieran. You know what I mean? Even as a player, he never seemed happy. He always that grumpy head on him. You know what I mean? But no, look, he's just frustrated. He's probably just more frustrated given the fact that Armagh have played so well throughout the league.
Yeah.
But find themselves still, possibly contenders for relegation. I think Armagh as a team are box office. They've obviously had a lot of injuries. They've had a lot of bad luck throughout this league campaign. We've talked about the fact they didn't execute a lot of the chances they've created, and they find themselves in this bit of a hole. But I just think their entertainment value is class. We talk about Kerry being out there, has probably been the number 1 team, obviously, in the country. Armagh, to me, on their day, everything going right, everybody fit, they're one of the only teams in the country that can go toe-to-toe with Kerry and Croke Park. So I love Armagh, I love McGeeney, I love watching them play. I'm really looking forward to, as I said, again, to this weekend and the game.
Well, roll on, Paddy. We're in for hopefully a humdinger for weekend. Last round of fixtures in the Alliance National Football League always really does get the juices flowing, and hopefully it's the same. Once again, Paddy Bradley, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, the podcast is kindly brought to you by YourGoRetro.com. Use my promo code JMACPodcast for 15% off on the website. The retro gear is what it's all about these days. Paddy Bradley, enjoy your week, and happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow to every listener and follower out there. Thank you, Paddy.
Good man, John. Cheers. Thanks, man.